So what does it really take to build a family that lasts? Today, we're going to break down a very specific blueprint for that, something called the permanent covenant family. Let's dive into what this model is all about and why its supporters say it's on the brink of disappearing.
Okay, so right out of the gate, the source material we're looking at hits you with a really jarring statistic. It claims that 60 years ago, 70% of families in the US fit their definition of a covenant family. Now get this, today, that number has absolutely plummeted to just 2%. I mean, that is a staggering nosedive, and it really sets the stage for a pretty dramatic argument.
And they don't pull any punches with how they describe this. They call it a near extinction. Wow. That's incredibly strong language, and it frames this whole thing as a really urgent crisis.
So, naturally, this brings up a couple of huge questions, right? First off, what exactly is a covenant family anyway? And second, why does this source claim it has practically collapsed? Let's start by looking at their diagnosis of the problem.
So, why the huge drop? Well, the source material presents a very clear, and I gotta say, pretty critical diagnosis. It points the finger squarely at what it calls a 60-year failure in how we approach this.
The source is just incredibly direct in its assessment. It states, point blank, that whatever the church has been trying to do for the last 6 decades to promote this family model, well, it's failed.
So when you boil it all down, the central argument being made is that the marriage training courses we have right now are fundamentally inadequate. They're just not up to the task. And with that diagnosis in hand, the source then moves on to propose its own solution.
So, having laid out the problem, the source offers a very specific fix, a highly structured 16-week solution that's designed to forge what it calls permanent families.
So let's get that definition straight. What is a covenant family? According to this source, it's a permanent family structure, something commanded by Jesus Christ and based on Genesis. And that word, permanence, that's the absolute core of this entire model. The program itself is built around a 16-week timeline. So, this isn't some weekend retreat. We're talking about a 4-month commitment that's split into 2 clear phases, training and then application.
And the program is split right down the middle. The first 8 weeks act as a pre-wedding course for couples who are engaged. Then you have the wedding day itself, and right after that, they jump into a second 8-week course that's all about applying those lessons as a new married couple.
Okay, so what do couples actually do during these 16 weeks? Well, the entire program is really built on 3 core pillars.
The foundation of this whole thing rests on 3 key practices. First, a daily spiritual surrender. Second, you're actively practicing what the source calls the 10 biblical behaviors of love, principles like patience, kindness, and forgiveness. And third, and this part is really emphasized, is getting involved in a structured community.
The idea is that these 3 pillars, working together, are the essential foundation you need to build a marriage that is, in the source's view, permanent. But it's that third pillar, community, that gets some really special attention.
Yeah, the text argues that you just can't take this journey alone, so it proposes a very specific 2-tiered system of support to guide couples through the whole process.
Here's how it all breaks down. On one side, you have a Christian mentors couple. Think of them as an older advisory pair. And on the other, you have a community group, which is basically a peer group of other Christian couples going through the exact same program at the exact same time. The whole purpose of this dual structure is pretty clear. The mentors are there to provide wisdom and guidance, while the peer group brings accountability and that really crucial sense of shared experience. The idea is you're all in it together.
And the ambition here goes way beyond just individual marriages. The text explicitly calls for a movement to grow these kinds of families not just here in the US, but all around the world.
All right, so let's recap the key takeaways here. First, this source frames the decline of a specific marriage model as a super urgent crisis, a near extinction. Second, it proposes a highly structured solution that mixes faith, training, and specific behaviors. And third, it argues that none of this is even possible without a deep, structured community for support and accountability.
And that leaves us with a final question to chew on. This source presents a very deliberate, faith-centered blueprint for achieving permanence in marriage. In a world of often fluid relationships, what does this highly intensive and community-driven model tell us about the broader human search for something that will last? Thanks for joining this explainer.